Welcome to the Empowered Women Life Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Karen Bashford. This podcast is for every woman who has ever felt limited by her past, silenced by trauma, or held back by society's expectations. Each week, we will share powerful stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you become the leader of your own life. Today, I'm going to be speaking about believe in yourself. And when you do believe in yourself, miracles happen. I've chosen this topic partly because of my recent trip to Sicily, partly because I think it's important that everyone who has any doubts has to realize that those doubts can be a driving force behind you, or they can hinder you. And the previous situation of hindering was what caused me to reach that point where my base body turned around and said, no more. I'm not prepared to continue like this, and consequently caused me a nervous breakdown. And in that nervous breakdown, I was able to really dive in deep and discover who I was. And in the discovery, I suddenly realized that actually I could believe in myself, I could like myself, and I could actually love and trust myself. Now, I've always been the kind of person that can just speak out and say what I think. That's never been an issue. However, the issue has been that I've never allowed myself to be me up until my nervous breakdown. I'd shown parts of me. I'd stood up for myself at times. I'm very resilient. But that didn't mean to say that I was being true to myself. And it's only beginning to really hit home just how much I stopped myself from being me. Now, some of you might know about my trip to Egypt and my trip to Cyprus to explore whether that's somewhere I wanted to live. But I recently, literally, returned, when I'm recording this, from a trip to Sicily for a friend's wedding. That trip was on the spur of the moment. Yes, I'm coming. And it was a case of book the hotel, the apartment immediately, or else where the trip was going to be meant that I would have to be further out from the centre, which meant there wasn't going to be very much for me to do of an evening as I was going on my own. The funny thing was that I didn't want to do anything once I got there. Yes, obviously I went to the wedding and I went on a boat trip, but basically I'd just gone there not knowing what to expect because I'd done no research. I booked the hotel, I booked the flight, and that was it. And the first I really looked at where I was going and where I was going to be was 2 days before I flew out. So I had no idea what I was entering into, apart from the fact that having inquired about the cost of getting from the airport to the village and the cost of getting from the village to the sea, I had no idea what I was going to be doing, how much it was going to cost me, or anything. And discovering quite how much the cost of taxis were going to be, and realizing that I was going to be somewhat restricted with ordering the taxis because they like to know what time you want to return. Well, based on the fact that I had no idea what was going to happen at the end of the boat trip, whether a group of us were going to go for a meal, whether we were just going to go for a wander, or if we were just going to leave, I did not want to book that taxi. However, I also wanted to know that I could get home back to the apartment. And it was this realization that I wasn't prepared to restrict my freedom that I decided to get a hire car instead. And that was a bit of a shock. I'd ordered a C3, same vehicle as I drive now. I know how to drive it. It's dead easy to manage. Obviously, all cars are different, but I have the take on how big it is, what I can do with it, and such like. But when I'd signed all the paperwork, the woman took me outside to pick the car up, only to discover it was I've forgotten what it was called. No, it begins with C as well. Oh, I can't remember what it was called. Anyway, doesn't matter what it was called or not. It had an extra engine length to what I'm used to. It was also a very modern car, which I'm not used to. My car doesn't tell me very often when I'm doing something wrong, other than to beep at me and say, you're getting a bit too close to the back wall or something like that. Other than that, it does not talk to me. It doesn't flash anything on the dash cam or anything like that. So it was a bit of an experience, to say the least. But never mind. Also, everything was on the opposite side to what I was used to. So there I was, sitting, turning the engine on, playing around with it, making sure I understand where the signals are, gears and such like, because I was literally about to go and drive this car 28 kilometers from the airport to my apartment. I didn't even know where I could park. I had no physical coins or anything like that. All I had was notes and cards, my driving license, me and my luggage. So off I go. Managed to turn the right direction and be on the right side of the road. Then it come to another turning. And I did manage that as well. I managed to get round the roundabout the right way, and I managed to get onto the motorway. And that's where the fun began, because the car kept beeping at me or flashing things at me, or it give me a number and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm trying to drive and you just keep talking to me. Fun, intriguing. And in the end, I just thought, oh, blow it. I'm just going to be curious. I finally got to understand that when this yellow thing bombed me, basically, it was telling me I was getting a bit too close to the edge of the inner lane, which, obviously it was sensing that if I went too close, I could hit the barrier or something like that. However, if you've ever driven in Sicily, you'll understand that the way they drive is they come very, very close to you when they overtake. And they do have a tendency to stay straddled across the centre line. So at times I felt the need to move over so that this car that was overtaking me was going to have the space to do so. But after a while, I got to just accept that's how they drive and just allow them to get on with it. But I did manage to change the gears, although this car had a 6th gear, which I've never had to deal with before, but I got there. And it did keep telling me that I had to drop down or go up a gear because that's what it could do. And I got to that point where I was looking more often at the control panel, if you want to call it that, than I was the road at times, trying to figure out what the machine was telling me. Anyway, I got myself to the hotel or the apartment, parked up. Took forever to find how to pay because I had no coins, but I managed to sign up for the app and then get myself signed in and paid for to be able to park, hoping and praying that I could park there for as long as I needed to if I paid. And it wasn't one of these time restriction places where you have to move after a certain time or anything like that. Because my knowledge of Italian is non-existent. So I nearly sent the mic flying then. Anyway, that was all okay. Then it came to the apartment. I couldn't figure out where it was. I finally found the number, went in, and it was this beautiful old cobbled courtyard. And there was all these doors off of it and stairs going up. And this very kind lady inquired, what can I do to help you? Not that we got on very well because she couldn't speak English and I couldn't understand her Italian, but that's beside the point. And we did manage to suss out that I needed to speak to somebody. And I finally looked at my phone and discovered that I'd received a message from a gentleman called Giuseppe, who was the owner of the apartment and was waiting for me to contact him to tell him I had arrived and he would come and meet me. Consequently, I did, and he turned up. But interestingly enough, my apartment was on the 4th floor, no lifts, 84 stairs. Now, I live in a property that's got the most 17 stairs. And I had to go up 84 stairs to get to the apartment. Giuseppe kindly carried my suitcase. And we took our time because I haven't walked up many stairs for a very long time. So my legs weren't necessarily as healthy as they could be, or was my breathing as good as it could be? And we got there, and he opened the door, and my first reaction was, oh, wow. The apartment was big, and there was only me. There was this bedroom, an entrance hall, a square entrance hall, and then this lounge with a kitchen all along one wall. And it had a balcony that overlooked that cobble yard that I was talking about. And then there was the roof terrace that I could walk straight out onto. No more stairs. It was literally the roof of the building, apart from my part of the apartment. And it was stunning. The views were amazing. You could see right across to the hills in the distance. You could see down to the sea. Not that I was on the sea, it was a good 10 kilometres from the apartment to the sea. But I could see the port and all the sea. And then in another direction, there was this hill, literally in front of me, with houses dotted all over it. and I could lean over and look down into this very long street that I'd parked on, which was basically the high street. That terrace became my home for the time I was in Sicily, apart from the wedding and going down to the port for the boat trip. I didn't want to leave it. It was like it was offering me peace and quiet and a chance to relax and do what little work I wanted to do, but just enjoy being where I was. My experience of driving in Sicily was I could do it, but I didn't want to actively drive, especially after my experience of trying to find the supermarket and discovering that to park, I had to reverse into a parking bay on a busy road. And on the basis I wasn't sure about the car and its length, because I was still learning how long it was, I wasn't too comfortable to do that. And I landed up going around and roundabout a few times. I also, unfortunately, managed to go up a one-way street, which luckily didn't result in any accidents. And the people that were coming down in their cars were very good and gave me space to get back on where I needed to be. But the thing I'm telling you this for, the reason why I'm sharing all of this is sometimes we have to just believe that everything will work out as it needs to, and to have a belief in ourselves that we can do something. I certainly didn't imagine walking up 84 steps to get to an apartment. And based on my history of breathing issues, it was somewhat of a challenge to suddenly think, I've got to go up these stairs. But one of the things I've learned as I've got to know myself, and I even knew beforehand, but really didn't implement it, was talk to yourself. As you're doing something, start just talking to yourself, encouraging yourself. And there's nothing wrong with saying to somebody, we're going to have to do this slowly, which is what I did with Giuseppe, and he was fine about it, especially when I was laughing, saying, you mean to say I've really got to walk up all those stairs? He was really, really nice. But even so, there's nothing wrong with saying that something isn't right for you, that you're going to have to take your time. And as I said, I talked myself up those stairs. I counted them. That's why I know there was 84 of them in the end. I also allowed myself to relax and not worry about the breathing or how my legs were feeling. I just simply kept saying to myself, I was safe, that I could do this. And in doing that, you begin to believe you can. You might think you can, and that's entirely different to believing you can. And if each step I took, I was confirming that I could do the steps and my breathing was okay. And I actually surprised myself and got to the top of 84 steps, only slightly out of breath. Now, that probably would have been a different story altogether if I'd had to do that carrying my suitcase, but I did it. And this is the thing. When you truly start to understand how to motivate yourself, what you need to say to confirm that you're safe and that you can do something, you start to find little miracles happen. I certainly wasn't expecting to get to the top of those stairs and be with breath. I was expecting to be literally gasping for breath, but I wasn't. And obviously, I was thrilled. But what was so good was when he opened the door and I walked in, there was this instant shift in me. This was worth it. The apartment was worth the steps. The sun terrace alone was worth all the hassle of driving the car, of parking, of paying, and then finding the apartment. It was all worth the hassle. And a lot depends on how you want to react to situations. I could have decided, you know what? This is horrendous. But yes, I was irritated by the fact that I couldn't work out how to pay for the parking until I managed to get on the app, and then that became dead easy. Yes, I could have made a big fuss about the number of flights there were to the property. And the thought of going up and down those stairs every time I wanted to go out. But it wasn't. It was like I acknowledged this is where I was and this was what it was going to be like, and that was fine. We can learn lessons from every experience we go through. I learned a lesson in driving. Whether I would want to drive there again, that's a totally different matter. I might do so, but I would make sure that I confirmed the vehicle that I was going to receive. When you're comfortable with something, even when faced with a different situation, you respond differently. Your body is more relaxed for a start off, and you can deal with things better. I could have actually turned around and said I wasn't prepared to take the car, but then I would have had a problem because it was already paid for a start off. But believing that you can do something, believing that no matter what confronts you, you will find a solution is perhaps the most empowering thing you can do for yourself. And taking the lessons from the experience. I learned a lot by taking the wrong exit on the roundabout. I learned a lot from the fact that not getting panicky and going slow and allowing others to react before I went forward again made a big difference to the scenario that could have happened with regards to me driving the wrong way up the road. It's knowing within yourself that you're capable. And quite often When you doubt yourself, when you question yourself, you're forgetting that you have an innate ability to do things, even when confronted with situations that challenge you, make you feel really uncomfortable, and leave you wondering, how am I going to deal with this? Believing that you can changes everything. And little miracles do happen. Big ones happen as well, but I'm grateful for the little ones because that's what's needed at that time. Like there was very few cars coming down, but the few cars that did gave me the space and the maneuverability to be able to respond accordingly. There was this very nice gentleman who followed me on the right side of the road until I was clear, and he gave me the space to get on to the right side of the road. And then he continued to follow me until he knew that I was comfortable again with driving. Because obviously, faced with that situation, I doubted myself after it had all finalized and straightened itself out. And that's when I say little miracles happen. He didn't need to follow me. He didn't need to check on me. And I knew he was checking me. I could see by the way he was keeping a distance, but keeping close. I could see that when I was trying to figure out how to get myself out of the situation, he was trying to help me. Lessons are amazing for enabling you to do something again, but differently. I learned a lot from ensuring that I positioned myself and I looked for all the obvious signs, even if there weren't sort of arrows or things like that, to clearly indicate what side of the road I needed to be on. And even on the motorways, when I wouldn't go 130 kilometers because I was uncertain, I stuck to what I was comfortable with. And that was fine. That enabled me to get to where I needed to be without being overly worried or concerned or feeling uncomfortable with a situation. Quite often, we do not realize that there is something within us that we can call upon to help us. I must admit, there was a lot of universe. Please, you keep me safe. Can you keep this car safe? Can you keep anyone who comes close to me safe? I was saying that. I would be taking deep breaths in and talking to myself, you can do this. This is okay. You've done this. You just made a mistake. Mistake was safe. You got out of it. Just pay attention and things like that. You can do that in any situation. It doesn't have to be driving a car. It can be going into a new environment. You don't know anyone and you're uncomfortable doing so. Or it could be that you met somebody you're uncertain about. You can ask for universal help, but you can also trust that you are going to be safe, that everything will work out as it should do. And we forget that we have control over what we think. I could have allowed panic thoughts to come in. Oh my God, what do I do? Da, 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 and literally lost control. That wouldn't have solved the situation. It certainly wouldn't have done my health any good. So believing in yourself and trusting that everything will work out as it should do will allow little miracles to happen. And then when at the end of it all, you can sit down and review, acknowledge that there were lessons to be learned, that you succeeded and you learned what you needed to learn, that perhaps you need to slow down, perhaps you need to look at things in a different perspective, or that your observations needed to improve. Your communication skills need to improve. Or you need to trust and believe in yourself. And acknowledge the fact that you have come through whatever you were facing, safe and secure. Because that scenario that I faced could have been a lot worse, but it wasn't. And do you know what? I only asked for universal guidance and support after I'd come out of that situation, not before. Because before, I hadn't even thought about what would happen if I did. But once I'd been through it, I learned that I needed to observe better, that I needed to remember how to turn, to ensure that the curb was always on the right side of me, not on the left side of me. So what lessons do you need to take from the experiences that have challenged you that will help you go forward and allow those little miracles to happen? That's it for today. I hope you've gained something from my share, and I look forward to speaking with you again. Bye for now. Take care.